Well, I would like to repeat the story that was told on Sunday for several reasons. But because several have heard it before, I want to put a poser to you who have heard it before to get your expression of how it is for you. You know, in the years with Divine Mother, she always started her meditations with a prayer. And that prayer was, "Thou art the Mother, Thou art the Father, Thou art friend and companion, Thou art knowledge and wealth, Thou art all in all." And the prayer went on. But, you know, there's a story about a storyteller. And that storyteller would only tell one story. He traveled everywhere in the world, but he only ever told one story. But of course there were those who heard the story over and over again. And it was the general opinion of those who heard that story again and again that the story may not change, but the phenomena was that it seemed that at one time it was their mother telling the story, at another time it was their father telling the story, at another time it was their friend telling the story, or their priest telling the story. So for those who heard this story before, it would be interesting, even though there's only perhaps a second telling of it for you, even though there have been stories that have told over the years many times. This particular story has only been told once before. And to see for you what the phenomena is relative to the story, in relationship to the prayer and the storyteller. Now it was important because we have this video that's going around, and so there's a continuum for those who watch the videos. So it's necessary to repeat again what was said in terms of, over these last weeks, it has been arising out of the stories, the question that's been posed again and again: what is your relationship with life now? And we know that life, existence, movement, as it can be described, encompasses those three levels of mind. The nitty-gritty level of mind, which is the cause and effect in our action and reaction, opposites of the normal everyday life. That spiritual level, the occult, so-called, where we have at play our intuition and our dreams, and the magic that goes on, the synchronicities that we become aware of, all occur in that occult spirit realm. And then that level of oneness or interrelatedness, where we know compassion and empathy and pity abide, because we have that, a recognition of our relationship with all things. So they all are encompassed by what we call life or existence. So there's this story of a very young man, a young Jewish man. He was called Elijahu, and he lived in the great city of Kiev in the Ukraine that there's so much news about now. And he was a very special young man because he had a longing to know the mysteries, learn about the great depths of life. So he spent a lot of his time at the House of Learning studying the ancient spiritual texts. But one night Elijahu was in bed asleep when he had a dream. He dreamt that he got up and took the path which led to the synagogue. And when he entered the synagogue, it was empty. But there, where the rabbi usually stood to say the prayers, there was a prayer shawl and the shofar, the very symbolic and sacred ram's horn that is blown on special occasions. But then suddenly Elijahu was aware of a presence, and when he turned around, there was a man, but a man that was not earthly, and he was wearing a shroud. Now, strangely enough, Elijahu was not at all afraid, because he was aware that this man had an appearance of great sorrow about him. And so the man spoke, and he said, "Elijahu, you must help us. We have 48 souls who were slaughtered by the Cossacks, and now we're lost between heaven and earth, and you are the only one who can save us." Now Elijahu was greatly distressed. He said, but I'm only 12 years old. And the man said, "Elijahu, help us. Put on the prayer shawl and take the shofar and bring it to the cemetery ground and blow the shofar before the great festival of Rosh Hashanah. Only then will the gates open through which we can pass." Well, just at that instant, Elijahu woke up, and he suddenly realized that he'd been dreaming. So he was very greatly relieved, very great. Oh, it was just a dream. Oh, but then all day he had the voice of the man in his head saying, "You're the only one who can save us." And that night, when he went to sleep again, he dreamt again that he went to the synagogue. When he entered the synagogue, there in front of the ark was a shrouded figure wearing a shawl. And to Elijahu's great surprise, it was a woman, because this was not a place for a woman, in front of the ark. But when she turned around, he again had a great wave of compassion, because he could feel the sorrow in her. And she spoke again, "Please save us. You are the only one who can save us." And then Elijahu awoke again, and again, recognizing that it was a dream, he tried to put it out of his mind. But the words kept ringing in his ears, "You're the only one who can save us." That night, again, this time when Elijahu entered the synagogue, there were people everywhere. And then he could see that on one side there were 24 men, and on the other side 24 women, all wearing shrouds, the dead. And one of the men spoke to him, and Elijahu said to him, "Who are you?" And the man again said, "We are the 48. Please, you're the only one who can save us. Time is running short. You must help us." At that moment, Elijahu woke up, sweating, shaking, but it seemed that a force greater than himself took over him, washed over him, greater even than the feeling of compassion and pity that he had for those lost souls. And with great impetus, he jumped up out of bed, dashed out, and raced along the road to the synagogue. And when he entered the door of the synagogue, there was no one there. But there was the prayer shawl and the shofar. So with great trepidation, even though that force was impelling him, he wrapped the prayer shawl around his shoulders. Oh, and a great feeling of peace came over him. He quickly picked up the shofar, realizing that time was running out, and he dashed as fast as his legs could take him to the cemetery. When he entered that place, the feeling of sorrow was palpable to him, and he, in his heart of hearts, said, "Oh, I pray, I pray that I'm not too late." And with that, he lifted the shofar to his lips, and he blew, and hardly a little sound came out. But then he blew hard, and the sound resonated throughout that place of the dead. Suddenly, Elijahu felt a wind entering that space. It seemed to blow hard, all around, whirling around. And then it seemed he felt the touch of people, as though they were hugging him, embracing him. And then both that feeling and the wind disappeared. And it seemed to Elijahu that in the silence that followed, he heard the creaking sound, like a door opening and then closing. Then silence and stillness. But then Elijahu realized that the dawn was coming up. This was the great festival day, and all the men would be gathering in the synagogue to pray. He ran as fast as he could back to the synagogue. When he entered, there was one lone man sitting there, not wearing a prayer shawl. But when the man turned around to look, it was the rabbi. And Elijahu was, what will the rabbi say? I'm wearing his shawl. But the rabbi rose up from his kneeling position and came over and embraced Elijahu, thanking him, saying, "It was only you who could save these souls. Only you." Now we can see from this story that it embraces all the three levels of existence. That level of life where fear and conflict abide, that level of dreams and intuition, that level of compassion and pity and love, they all go together in this state in which we find ourselves. And that gives us an ability to be able to recognize what our relationship with the movement of life is. So that's the question that needs to be answered. But also this question that's been posed to you who've heard this story before, changed as it is a little in its content, and yet, because the story is told to you, there is perhaps a possibility to answer the question, as it was with these who heard a story over and over again, and the prayer that Divine Mother said over and over and over again, every day. What's the meaning for you? They actually go together. Because in answering one, we answer the other. What's our relationship with life now?
It's the interconnectedness of everything.
Uh-huh.
Everything has a part to play. Without one part, nothing can't work.
No. But what is it about you and you now? Because even though we see that interrelatedness, we know those parts can have a predominance at any given time. So we can relate it back to the storyteller. Sometimes it's a mother telling the story, sometimes it's a father telling, sometimes it's a lover, sometimes... Do you see the connection here? Life is always changing. That reality is always different, isn't it? But so what is the constant? What is the constant now that we can grasp in relationship to this holographic life? What's the unchanging reality in your life? That doesn't change. Everything else comes and goes. Has reality in the moment. Holographic is.
The stillness.
All right. All right. The camera doesn't move. It's only life around it that moves, isn't it?
That's the view of the camera, of course.
Right.
It's like this outer screen.
Right.
That we're viewing this sort of movie of life, and it's interesting because we're both the camera and the screen.
Absolutely. Absolutely we are. But what was your experience? Would you be able to relate? Did it have the appearance of, in the story, of there being a different storyteller, or was the content of the story more meaningful in its... Or can you tell a difference?
To me, the content changes. So it's like we get a... Well, for me, there was a different focus
Yes.
on the story
Uh-huh.
that was there before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I can't remember what it was before that I focused on, but to me it was, this time was about a blessing.
All right.
A blessing, which
Uh-huh.
seemed a bit at odds with the story, but
Yes.
it still seems
It still
to be,
seems...
about blessing. Yes.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, well, a little poser that goes on. A little poser that goes on.